Hi again, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of the Let's Reign podcast, revealing conversations with UC athletes, coaches, and administrators. I'm your host, Dan Hoard. Our guest on this episode is UC women's basketball coach Katrina Merriweather, entering her second year as head coach of her alma mater. Let's start with year one. You upped UC's win total by 6 games. You went to the WNIT. What were the successes for you in year one?
We were really excited that the young ladies were having a good time. You know, a lot of it is getting them to believe through this transition of going from the American to the Big 12. We knew we were going to have to celebrate all these small victories along the way. And I thought that they really embraced that idea. And so you saw us cheering a lot. You saw us no matter who we played, if we won or we got consecutive stops. I think everybody was engaged on the bench. And that was our biggest win, was culturally we feel like we took a lot of steps forward.
What stood out about Big 12 competition?
For us, we've always been this dribble drive, very quick, fast team, and you get into the Big 12 and they have a lot of size. So I think that for us, it was we have to continue to get better at the way we play. We also have to make some adjustments, especially defensively when you have these teams that have 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", and our tallest player is 6'3" and a half, maybe. And I think that was probably the biggest adjustment for us. We're so used to rebounding the ball at a high rate, and I thought we did that pretty well too. I think we were first in the conference in offensive rebounds, so we had some successes there, but definitely the size.
Your leading scorer and rebounder was Jillian Hayes, a senior, but she's back. She's got a 5th year of eligibility because of the COVID rules, and she elected to come back for another year at UC. What's that mean as a building block for this year?
Well, it's amazing. To know Jill is to love Jill. You know, she's a hard worker. She's blue collar. And at the same time, she's got the best personality. The team loves her. She's a joy to be around. She's just everything that you want your players to be. And because she is our leading scorer, leading rebounder, she comes back and she plays hard every day. So she's not that kid that you have to give anything to. She's going to go get it. She's going to take it. And I think that mentality spills through our team, and it helps with a staff like ours where we appreciate toughness and grit, and that is Jill.
She joined us on a previous episode of this podcast. People should check it out if they haven't already, because she was awesome. And among the things we discussed was her appearance in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, which was great exposure for her and for the program. The shoot in Belize took place in February during the course of the season. So she left the team between a couple of games. She came back and had 15 points and 17 boards. So she obviously did her job. But was that stressful for you while that was going on?
You know, I think the number one thing you worry about is what does it do to your team? And what was phenomenal about what this team did last year was they didn't care. They were so happy for her. They celebrated her. They thought it was the coolest thing ever. If you go to her pictures, you see how many of her teammates reposted or made comments, or, you know, their big thing is hearts and heart eyes, and they're constantly elevating, celebrating, and just really getting after each other in a positive way. And of course, she gets teased a little bit, right? Because here's our big, tough, strong Jill, you know, in a bathing suit. But I thought that was really neat for her. And it's honestly where this game has evolved, the visibility that women's basketball has, and those opportunities are going to come up. And as a coach, you have to evolve with them. Does it make me nervous? Well, yeah, because anything happened and she didn't make it on that plane back. You know, we're playing without Jill, but not to the extent that I ever second-guessed, you know, having a say in whether or not she should or shouldn't go. 100% her decision. And she was more hesitant than I was because she was worried about not being good when she got back to the team.
So she returns as a key building block, and she's not the only returning player who had a significant role last year. Your second leading scorer, Ariel Jackson, is back as well. Tell us a little bit about the returning players and the steps you are hoping they take this year.
Yeah, what I want to see Ari do is continue to develop in her maturity. I think she's such a fun-living kid. I mean, everybody wants to be around her. You know, she's the life of the party. She's constantly making everybody laugh, and I don't know that she really has realized how good she is. And so we're trying to get her to understand how big of a role she can play and the goals that she can accomplish within this league. You know, she has a storied background. You know, her mother played in the WNBA, and she calls just about every great player or coach in the WNBA auntie. And I think it's such a cool thing for her. And we want her to have the same tenacity that you can hear in her mother's voice even today. But part of it is just Ari's such a good kid. You know, like she just wants to be out there and have fun and play. And we want her to maximize her potential. And I think that she's grasping onto that. And that's been fun to watch over the last couple of months, where she's realizing that we also have some really good players that have come in. So she has to play a little harder and a little better. And she's stepping up to that challenge.
Your newcomers include 3 transfers and a true freshman.
Yep.
What impact are you looking for the newcomers to have this year?
We wanted Chloe Mann to be a part of this program. She's another one, fun-loving. You're going to see she's very animated in her facial expressions. She keeps us going in practice, but she's extremely athletic, extremely competitive. Her and Reagan Jackson both, being from Texas in that area, they're good friends, but yet they compete and make each other better every day. And Chloe's really what we needed in terms of having another ball handler that was a 3-level scorer that takes pride defensively, because that's what they do at Duncanville down there in Texas. So she's going to be an immediate impact. The good problem is we have quite a few people who could start, but I think what we're going to do is sell her on being our 6th woman and bringing all the energy off the bench. Alliance Diba is doing a phenomenal job rebounding the ball. You know, her and Jill are going at it every day, so Jill's going to get better because she's going against her, and Alliance has likely not gone against anybody like Jill, so she's getting better as well. Daily Dunn, the shooter from LMU, is doing just that, running the floor, spotting up, giving us some much needed exterior threats. And last but not least, Tanea Hilton is going to be everything that we hoped that she would be. And she is elevated practice. She's creating for herself and other people, and her and Jill have a really great relationship, so that's been fun to watch.
As we do this podcast, the signing day for the next recruiting class is about a month away, roughly. We can't discuss names until they sign, but people read the newspaper.
Right.
They see you've got a couple of top 50 commitments for next year, and you're not finished recruiting for next year. But how do you feel about the way that's gone since you and your staff have taken over this program?
I think that I'm really proud of the way that we've stayed true to ourselves. You know, there's a lot of things that are changing in this landscape, and we're going to talk about the platform and the opportunity to be a Bearcat. We said it from day one. We want people who want to be here, and so we want them to come for the right reasons, which to us is you see what we provide, not just as a not as a program, but as a department, a university, as a city. And I think we have a really unique opportunity for young people to grow here, and I think that that's being recognized, and that's reflective in some of the people that we're actually able to get in the living room with. And it's a proud moment for me as a Bearcat, because you come in and you wonder, is that going to work in this changing landscape? You know, can you do it the way that you've done it before? And I'm just really proud of my staff and how hard they work and all the support that we have around here, because it takes a village, literally, to make the kind of impact in recruiting that we've been able to make.
You use the hashtag, the Sisterhood, to describe what your program is about. Explain how you mean that.
Yeah, I love the term, because it's, whether it's your basketball team or it's actually my sister who's on staff, or I'm part of a sorority where I pledged here at UC. It's lifelong connections. And it means that when you become a part of this program, just because you don't play here anymore, or just because maybe you didn't play as much as you wanted even, and you leave here with a sour taste in your mouth, when you grow up a little bit a few years later and you're able to keep that in perspective, come back. You know, and email us and text us and call us and tell us about all the things that are happening in your life, so we can continue to support you and celebrate you. And so it extends far beyond our team, far beyond the 15 up to 15 kids that you'll see on our bench. It's every single person that's ever touched this program, whether I played with them or we coached them or not. And we hope that everyone feels like this is home always.
It's been an extraordinary year for women's basketball. The women's championship game outdrew the men's game, not by a little, by 4 million TV viewers. Caitlin Clark obviously had a lot to do with that. But has it lifted all tides, this increased interest in the game?
I think so. I mean, I think that when you look back, and the WNBA started when I came out of high school. And when you look at the players that were playing at that time, you know, Cheryl Swoops and Tina Thompson, and, you know, the list goes on and on. These are people that played for the first time here and didn't have to go overseas. and that they are the foundation of what the WNBA is and will always be. And then you get to 25 plus years later, and now here we are where people are paying attention. We have more of an ability to be visible, right, with technology. And I think that that's what we're seeing a lot, with people who watch Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, and you were remiss if you don't see the greatness of South Carolina, in that space. And people are still going to tune in to see if UConn is going to get to the Final Four because they're such a mainstay there. I think that you just have so many different people who are falling in love with individual players and people who love the game, and finally all of those are coming together, and that is what gets the viewership. And of course we would love to take advantage of it, and I think that we're primed to do that in regards to how we play and being fun and up tempo. But yeah, rising tide lifts all boats, right? And we think that we're in a space to join that.
I'm glad you got the expression right, by the way. I think I said raises all tides as opposed to raising all boats. So you got the expression right.
I don't really. Did you say it the opposite way?
I think I said it wrong, but I know you said it right. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no
I appreciate it.
I don't think I even realized that I corrected what you said. So,
well,
but yeah,
you saved me from having to live with getting it wrong. So as you get ready for the start of the season, what stood out about the workouts that you've had and the practices as you get ready to go? Yeah,
I think it's just the competitiveness. We have people who we're deeper in those spots, and we are transitioning into a more up-tempo dribble drive type of play. And with that, you get to break down all these drills, and it's a lot of one-on-one, a lot of competing, a lot of defensively, can you keep people in front? And we've broken down a lot of the drills to get down to the details and the fundamentals so that when we put it all together, we look a lot more cohesive. I think part of the challenge last year was evaluating the team and deciding which way to play at the same time. So there's some things that I wish I would have done a little sooner. I don't know that it's necessarily different, but just made some decisions earlier. And so we, as a staff, have done that this year. We're making some decisions about what zone we're going to play and what press we're going to use, and let's work on that now, instead of a few days before we play someone that we know presses and is going to put a lot of pressure on us. So I'm excited about how competitive we are day in, day out, every drill, and that it's going to prepare us just to be better.
The first line of your Twitter profile reads, "Living the dream."
Yeah.
Aside from being the head coach at your alma mater, how are you living the dream?
I think that the best part for me, when people ask me about being a coach, it just marries my passion for impacting young people and basketball. And I just cannot imagine doing anything else. I don't go to work one day of my life. I show up at this place, and then I do a lot of really, really cool things. And I know how blessed I am. This was not in the plan. I'm just an AAU girl who got a college coaching job. So I don't know what else to say besides it had to be meant to be, because it wasn't planned. Just wake up every day, try to be a good person and work as hard as I can, and surround myself and these young people with role models that I know that they're going to be able to be connected to for a lifetime, and everything else seems to fall in place.
It's a great description of living the dream.
Yeah.
Best of luck this season. Thank you for the time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You recognize my guest heading into his fourth year as UC's men's basketball coach, Wes Miller. You held a tip-off dinner about a week ago. It was packed. It sold out early. There's a buzz in this town for Bearcat basketball. Do you and your players feel it?
Well, I think, number one, there's always a buzz for Bearcat basketball. You felt that every year you've been here. But hopefully, over the last couple years, there's been consistent and gradual improvement, and it's been real growth that should be sustainable growth. And I think you get a sense that people recognize that. Now it's our job to go out there and make sure we continue to be on that kind of a track of real growth by how we approach it every day in practice.
Your special guest at that dinner was your former coach and mentor, Roy Williams. He attended practice the next day. What resonated with you and your players during that visit?
Well, it's really special for me to have him here. I mean, just on a personal level. And as I said that night, I've got terrific parents, so I want to say that first. But so outside of my parents, who've been the most influential people in my life, he'd be the next person. Not just my professional life as a coach, which he's had the most influence over that. But even on the personal side, he's just he kind of has been such a great example of what how you should represent yourself as a coach, as a man. His values, the things that he represents, like they've meant the world to me. So to have that person here, which he's been here multiple times since I've been the coach, is always special. But to have him here and have our team and our fans and people at the event be able to share in that with me, that was really, really cool. I thought his message was great. I've been around him for 20 years or so, maybe a little bit more than that. I always get energy when I'm around him. His competitiveness and his drive, it always inspires me. And I think everybody in the audience that night, including our players, got a sense for that.
Yeah, I can attest to that. You could feel that competitiveness being in the audience that night. You also met Sean Kilpatrick for the first time recently. He was back in town to be inducted into the UC Athletics Hall of Fame. What stood out about that interaction?
Well, and you had him on the podcast, which is this podcast is really something. You've had some big time people on here, but it was just awesome to have Sean back. Again, what's been really neat about coaching at Cincinnati, and I've said this so many times I can't count, I'm living out my dream. I get to coach somewhere where basketball really, really matters, and there's a history and a tradition of success that goes back 70-some years. We've been good at Cincinnati a long time before I was even on the face of this earth. So one of the reasons that I'm so excited to still be here, and I was excited to come here, was because of what happened before me. When I think about the people that I knew in my lifetime, some of the coaches, some of the players, Sean Kilpatrick's one of those people. And those moments are always really special. I remember, last year when Corey was inducted into the Hall of Fame and Nick Van Exel came back, and it was the first time I had a chance to meet Nick Van Exel. That's really cool for the kid in you, because I grew up watching Nick Van Exel and looking up to Nick Van Exel as a player. I was in coaching when Sean was playing here, but he was one of those guys that you watch Cincinnati games as a coach to learn about how to play defense, watching rebound, watching Mick Cronin's teams. But you also loved watching a player that approached it the right way, that had real toughness, that wanted the ball at the end of the game. You'd sit there in recruiting meetings after Cincinnati games, go, we got to find a guy like Sean Kilpatrick. And so then to meet somebody like that, those are those full circle moments for you as a coach. And then, listen, he's one of the great players in the history of this program, and there's a lot of great ones. That's saying something. He needs to be back here, to be around this, to be a part of it. And so that was a really good step in the right direction to get him more a part of this program again, especially now that he's kind of finished his playing career and retired.
Let's discuss last season. 22 wins, 2 in the conference tournament, 2 in the NIT. When you did lose a game, it tended to be a heartbreaker. 9 losses by 5 or less. How do you win those games this year?
Yeah, well, listen, there's a couple different ways to look at this. The first thing you'd say is you lost so many 1 or 2 possession games. You're really, really close. And there's a part of that is accurate. But there's a dang reason. It's not a coincidence when you lose that many 1 and 2 possession games. You're not as close as you think. And I think as a program and as a team, starting in the summer, we've tried to be really honest about that. It's great that we return a bunch of key players. I'm proud of that. That should impact winning, but it won't impact winning if we don't make changes. We can't just approach it the way we've approached it and think because we got key players back, now all of a sudden that's going to be worth 1 or 2 possessions, because the guys we're playing against, they're pretty dang good too. Okay, and they got better this offseason, and they're working. So we're close enough that we should be able to do the work and do the things necessary to become a better team. But it's not going to just happen. And right now we're in the process of working on the things every day that can make us a better team. So as close as we were, I like to hear that in some ways. But in other ways, I think it's dangerous talk. We got a lot of dang work to do.
Retaining players isn't easy to do in this day and age when they're really good. Other schools try to pry them away. These players left money on the table in many instances. How does the continuity help in getting so many key players to come back.
It should help, and it's our job to make sure it helps. Number one, when you're in practice, you're so much further ahead because there's just certain things that guys that have been in the program understand and are now habits. And when you have new players and incoming players, you're trying to get them to understand how to do things. That's number one. And then you're trying to make those things habits so they do them without thinking about them. Returning players, if they've been here working, which our returning players have, they're doing those things unconsciously now. That really improves your rate of learning and your rate of growth. The second thing, when there's examples in front of you as an incoming player how to do it, I found that increases the learning rate as well. So now our incoming players, whether they're transfers, whether they're freshmen, they can look out in the court and see, okay, it's not just coach telling me this is how we're supposed to do it. I can see somebody doing it correctly. And I think that matters over time. So it's a compounding effect if we're approaching it the right way. And I say if because it's our job to go out and approach it the right way.
Let's discuss some of the individuals. Dan Skillings was your leading scorer last year, second in rebounding, second in block shots, and just learning the game still. What are your expectations for him as a junior?
To continue to grow at an incredibly fast rate. We've always felt that his natural ability was very unique and special. Certainly the dimensions and length, his ability to pursue the basketball, his basketball instincts, those things are all at a very elite level. But as you mentioned, he was new to the game. Didn't play only a couple years before he was recruited, and so there's been a massive learning curve. And I think if you look at the last 2 years, he's been growing at this fast rate. He's almost different than most players because there's so much to learn. He grows at a faster rate, and from where he was his freshman year to where he finished the year last year was a significant difference. I expect that type of leap again. His awareness on the court thus far in practice, it's like night and day. Somebody that at times, and not any fault of his own, was completely lost. Like it was, some things were foreign concepts. Now he's the guy that is talking other players through things or able to recognize things on the fly. He's already improved a great deal. I expect him to take another significant jump.
Jizzle James ended the season in spectacular fashion, 25 and 21 points in your final 2 games of the year. Was that a jumping off point for him for a great off season leading into year 2?
I think it was really important for his confidence. Certainly he didn't do anything in the last 2 games of the year that surprised any of his teammates or coaches. Because we saw, number one, we saw the way he worked every day. I'll tell you, to this point, and I think this is year 14 for me as a head coach, I've never had a freshman work harder on their game day in, day out over the course of a freshman year than Jizzle James. So, to see his improvement throughout the year, and then when he, had those 2 big games late in the season, that's not a surprise when you see the work day in and day out. And he'll be somebody I'll talk about in that way to every freshman I ever coach. Mm-hmm. I hope he's somebody that I talk about that as a sophomore too. And so far so good. His work ethic's just tremendous. He's also learning the game at a really fast rate in a different way than Dan, but it's a similar type of dynamic. And it's been so much fun to coach him the first couple weeks of practice this year and think back of what it was like coaching him a year ago, because it's almost like 2 different people in terms of understanding what's going on out there. But certainly there's expectations that we have for him. I think there's massive expectations he has for himself, and as I tell him every day, just stay at that day-to-day process, which he's doing, and I think everything will work out well for Jizzle.
All right, I'll give you names of other returning guys, and you can just give a couple of thoughts on them as players and people, whatever. Day Thomas.
He was our rock last year. He's Day-Day's quiet by nature, but he has a loud presence in our program. He was a guy that, as I mentioned with Jizzle, his every single day approach and his steady mentality, he's just so rock solid. He emerged as a leader within this program last year. And people may not know that, but he held us together in a lot of ways. He doesn't say a lot, but when he does, everybody stops and listens. He's one of those kind of guys. He obviously had the foot injury. We took it really slow, and I know he probably was frustrated being a little rusty this summer, but I think he looks like Day-Day now. We need him to continue to emerge as a leader on this team. His day-to-day approach, if it's the same as it was last year, he'll take massive steps forward as a player, and I think that'll help our team a great deal too.
Aziz Bandago.
You know, it's probably similar with all these guys, and I don't mean to be boring, but it's just the truth. There's so much better awareness of what we're doing and how we're supposed to do it, and it's so much more natural for him that he's making more basketball plays. Right now he's in great shape. He looks bouncy and athletic and fast. Defensively, we've challenged him to extend and be able to switch out and guard perimeter players all summer, to be able to play different ball screen coverages. You know, people tried to pick on him sometimes in league play with certain coverages. Boy, he's really grown and improved there. And so he's improved in a lot of ways, but I think defensively it's been fun to watch him embrace some coaching and embrace some of the challenges that we've thrown at him thus far, and I expect him to have a better year as well.
Simas Lukosius.
The way he played the second half of league, you know, I think it gave us a lot of confidence that he's a guy that we can put the ball in his hands. He's a guy that we can run off screens. You know, he's a primary offensive option, and he earned that. And I think he showed everybody out there in games why he's that. Again, I expect him to take another step there. And again, the second year, there's just so much more awareness of what we do and how we do it. And I could say that about all of our returning players. I feel the same about Simas.
C.J. Frederick.
He's healthy thus far, you know, and we hope he stays that way. I've said this many, many times. It hurt our team last year when he went down with the hamstring injury, you know, right before Christmas break. He was such a big part of what we were doing, you know, all throughout non-conference play until that injury. And he was our most efficient offensive player statistically for sure. But I think the thing about CJ people don't realize is it's not just the plays he makes, it's the plays that others make because he's on the floor, or the little simple decisions that most people don't notice that put other people in position to make a play. I mean, he really does make offense work just by being out there. He is one of the most naturally intelligent offensive players I've ever coached, and obviously the shooting is something that affects offensive possessions as well. So when he went down, it affected our team a ton last year. It's been really nice to have him out there all summer and all fall, and if we can continue to kind of take steps and put days together, you know, we know what he's capable of doing on a basketball court.
Josh Reed.
You know, I think we challenged Josh a lot. He was one of our best defensive players, certainly one of our most reliable defensive players, and one of our best rebounders when he's committed to it, to go into the board every possession. And he's already proven that in the Big 12. That gives us a ton of confidence that there's a role for him. I think for Josh to take the next step, he's got to expand his role to become more of a threat offensively. And that's not just shooting. Now, shooting is an important part of it, and he's worked his tail off on his jump shot. I mean, he was a guy that came back early in May because he wanted to be in the gym and be consistent the whole month of May while a lot of guys were at home. He's worked his tail off on that, but he's also trying to find other ways to impact offensive possession. So I'm excited to see kind of how that kind of plays out here over our preseason and the early part of our non-conference schedule.
C.J. Anthony.
I love that you ask about C.J. Anthony, Dan, because, you know, here's a guy that hasn't played a ton of significant minutes in front of our fans or on television. Yet what he's meant to our program in the 3 years that him and I have been together, it's not even, I'm not even able to describe it or put it into words. I mean, he's a leader within our program. He's an example of how you approach it. He's one of the hardest workers in our program. He has one of the best attitudes in our program. Now, he's competitive as all get out. So sometimes if you're in practice, especially when he was young, you might not have thought he had a good attitude. But no, he is positive. He's about the team. He's competitive and edgy. He's my type of guy. And I tell you what, he's turned into one hell of a basketball player. I think he hit 4 threes in practice yesterday, now that I'm thinking back on it. So it's been really neat to watch his growth. He's become a heck of a player, and he's a really important part of our program and a leader on this team.
A returner who redshirted, Rayvon Griffith.
You know, he's a joy to coach. He's the first thing I'd say, and this doesn't take away anything from the basketball. When I think of Ray, he's a terrific young man. When people that are fans of our program get an opportunity to be about Rayvon, you'll know exactly. If you were around him for 2 minutes, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He has just a kind heart. He's an awesome person, and he's been a joy. Now let's get to the basketball, because I'm not neglecting that. He led our team in rebounding this summer in our summer practices on offense and defense. He's been one of the most competitive guys and most hungry guys in our practices. And here's a guy that we know has great athleticism and ability. That's a pretty dang good start to trying to find and earn a role on this team. So he's doing really well.
All right, let's get to the newcomers. There are a bunch of them, 7. Connor Hickman.
Better than I expected at this point, and I thought pretty highly of him when we were recruiting him. He's been incredibly consistent, smart, reliable, tough. I think people will like Connor Hickman.
Dylan Mitchell.
Man, he's so versatile. I really believe he can be one of the best defensive players in the world. I mean, and he doesn't even know yet.
It's a strong statement.
He is just scratching the surface. The physical gifts are out of this world. He's a really intelligent young man and player. And as he continues to develop there, and we're pushing him pretty hard, I think he could be a special player on that end. Offensively, he has a lot more to his game than we realized. Coaching against him and scouting him, I've been really impressed with his ability to make decisions with the basketball, almost at times like a point guard. He's got great versatility. He's improving his shot. He has a really good sense of when to cut and how to play. We've been impressed with him for sure.
Arrington Page.
Man, I tell you what, he's got a chance to be really, really good, Dan. And he's gonna make 2 or 3 plays every day in practice that make your jaw drop. And then he makes 2 or 3 plays that he's still a young player and he's got some maturing to do. But I'm really excited about the way he's approaching it. I mean, his improvement from the day he got here till now has been significant. His talent is through the roof, and some of his natural instincts are through the roof. And just cleaning up some habits and some details, the stuff that you can coach, I think is that happens and he stays at it day in and day out, he's going to be a terrific player.
Tyler Betsy.
6'8", 6'9", longer than he is tall, smart, really has been able to grasp concepts and pick things up quickly. He shoots it, which we knew at a really high clip. As my college coach said when I was talking about him, he said, I want to know if he makes it, so I should say that better. He makes shots from the three-point line at a high clip. And he's so hungry. He's been working pretty dang hard and pretty damn diligent. Like, he's got a chance to push Jizzle a little bit in that area as a freshman. I don't know. Jizzle was different. But Tyler's a guy that's been really consistent, really diligent, really intelligent, and he wants it. It's hard to imagine him not having a good year.
We know the other Tyler McKinley, suffered a knee injury and had surgery. How severe?
Yeah, that if there's anything negative that we could say today, it's that was a real blow. I mean, number one for the young man, and I could say this about all my guys, but I just talked about Rayvon that way. I mean, he just has a heart. He's just one of these guys that he's just such a good guy, such a good person. And I feel like we've known him for 3 years because we started recruiting him right when we got the job. And he's from here in Cincinnati. So my heart was broken because he was doing really good, like way better than expected. And obviously we thought a lot of him. He had a great summer. He was having a great fall. And in our first practice of the year, suffered a freak injury. So my heart breaks for him, and my heart hurts for our team because it is a significant loss. And we lose quite a bit of depth in the front court losing him. But he will make a full recovery. He's already on his way. And I know he's ready to kind of get off the crutches and get where he can at least be out in the court a little bit more, because he's doing so much rehab. He's missing practice, and we want to get him back around our team on an everyday basis.
Your most recent addition is a Frenchman, Helvin Zella. I hope I said it right.
Yeah, you did good. I'm working on it. So, no, we've thrown him into the fire. You know, he was the captain of I think it was the under-18 French national team. That tells you about his character. He's been practicing hard as heck, and we threw him in. I mean, he joined us, right before we got going here. And so that's really hard to do with a bunch of guys that have been approaching it the right way since early in June or late in May. And he's trying to – it's like his hair's on fire, right? He's trying to learn all this stuff in a short period of time and do it while we're playing live basketball. That's not easy, but he's doing a very nice job thus far.
One more name, recruited walk-on J.J. Rembert.
Man, he's I tell you what, we don't use that term. We don't use those terms, because all of our guys, we treat them the same regardless of whatever their scholarship status is. But I tell you what, he's a better player than I think we realized when he committed to us a year ago. Our guys are having a really difficult time staying in front of him in practice. I mean, he's a jet with the ball. He's a smart offensive player, and he shoots it a little bit better than I thought he did. So he is giving our guys a run in practice. I mean, he's the one guy they don't want to match up with, because he makes them look bad defending the ball. But terrific kid. He has a personality bigger than this room. I tell you what, he has a future in something. I don't know what it's going to be, but he will have a big future in whatever he decides to do. I've been real impressed with the young man and kind of what he's going to mean, not just on the court, but to our program at large.
The schedule's out. It's insane. Xavier, Dayton, Georgia Tech, Villanova in the non-conference, then 20 league games, up from 18 last year. Arizona, Kansas, those are your first two league home games. How would you describe the schedule this year?
It's exciting. I've said this to anybody that'll listen to me. Every league in the country this year will be challenging. I've never coached in a league and didn't feel like it was challenging. That's just what college basketball is. So I'm not demeaning any other league. But after going through the Big 12, I can't imagine anything is more competitive or better than the Big 12. And by the way, statistically, you can look at it 100 ways from sideways. Every statistic says so. That was very difficult. It was very challenging. But, man, it was awesome. I mean, it was awesome. If you don't want to play against the best, to compete against the best, then I don't know what kind of competitor you are. And I think about how much better it made me as a coach, how much better it's made our players, how much more it's elevated our program. How could you want anything less? So, yeah, you look at it, that's a very difficult schedule. And there's some stretches in there on paper that'll make your jaw drop. But that's awesome. And whatever happens through that, if it goes good, that'll be great for us. If we have a couple stumbles, that'll be great for us too, because we're going to learn and grow and get better. And somebody said to me the other day, Coach, you guys are going to run the table this year. And I said, well, hell, every year that's the goal. I think the last time that anybody ran the table was 1976. Scott May, who I know a little bit because him and his son Sean and I are great friends, was the player of the year that year on the 1976 team. So heck yeah, that's the goal, and we want to do that. The chances aren't real high because that anybody's going to do it. The chances aren't real high anybody's going to run the table in the Big 12. There will be most likely, and my goal is not to fail at all, but there will be most likely failure throughout the league. Even the greatest teams, and we have some of the great teams in the country in our league, more than you can count. Everybody's going to have some failure most likely. The teams that can bounce back from that failure and respond quickly in the swiftest sense will be the teams, I think, that overachieve. The teams that can't respond quickly, I think everybody in this league is so damn good, they're going to respond. They're going to bounce back. Nobody's going to fold. But the teams that it takes a little bit longer, they may not overachieve or they may not get to where they're supposed to get. So we're going to focus a lot on how we deal with the tough stuff, because when you play in a league like that, it's likely some of that stuff's coming.
You've got a busy schedule. I need to let you go. This was fun. Can't wait to see your team take the court.
Yeah, time to get back to work. Thanks, Dan.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and let us know who you would like to hear from next. We also hope you will subscribe, rate, and review the Let's Rain podcast.